mission trip, mine actually started when Tom and Kathy came back from Nicaragua. And then, if you know the story how we were gifted our trip, we were all kind of shocked by it. But I was formulating this talk. I knew I was going to have to do something, and this is long before I even went. And I was reminded one day last spring, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans that I have for you. And I emphasize the word I, not me, it was God. Because we know that God's plan is God's plan, there's no way you can convince me that when we got on the airplane in Houston, that this wasn't God's mission trip, not mine, not Dan's, not Kathy's, not Terry's. Envision Terry sitting by the window, and I'm in the middle, you know, in coach, me, big fat guy, in the middle seat in coach, and the seat next to me is empty. And a gentleman sits down in the seat, and he notices a few rows behind him is empty. And he asks the stewardess if he could move back there. And the plane is getting ready to move away from the gate. And she says, yeah, if you hurry. And he jumps up and he moves into this empty row. Now across the aisle is a little Honduran lady breastfeeding her baby on an airplane. That was a shock. An empty seat and another guy sitting next to the window. And all of a sudden the plane moves back up to the gate. And the pilot, you know, announces we have a last minute arrival, you know, please, you know, set the door, whatever he says. And this little Honduran man runs onto the plane, sweat just running off of him. And he's supposed to sit over there in between these two people, but he chooses to sit next to me. And after we're over the water, and I've been flying for 30 years, and I was always amazed by the stewardess giving the flotation devices. We're in the United States. We don't fly over the water, and I'm looking, I'm thinking, dang, I hope these flotation things work. But this guy starts talking. He says, what are you going to Honduras for? So we told him, we're going to give away motorcycles to pastors. And he says, wow, that's cool. I'm a pastor. Oh, wow. And he tells us his story. He tells his story about the drug lords, and that's what he called them, the drug lords. You know, his church, he's a youth minister. He has 400 children that he ministers to. And he tells us the story how the drug lords went to him and said, quit preaching the evils of drugs to the children. And he says, I refused. He said, so they tried to shoot me. He says, but they missed. He says, and then I was in my car. He says, they tried to shoot me again. He says, they shot everything in my car, but they missed me. They didn't try a third time. They killed his wife in front of their son. And we're just sitting there going, holy diamonds. I mean, this man sat there for a reason. This is God's trip.
Amen, brother.
And we're sort of balling. Our host missionary, this guy was incredible. He's like a spider plugged into a welder. And the more stuff he could have going on, the better he liked his life. He feeds 10,000 children a year. Each meal that these kids get is a half a cent a meal. Every day, this meal is the only guaranteed meal that these children get. Every day, it's beans, rice, fake chicken, and some vitamins that's fortified into it. Every day. And they're grateful for it. I complain about meatloaf in my lunch the second day. And these kids get the same thing. Now, knowing about this meal that they get every single day, and it's just, you take it for granted. It's like, okay, cool. Wow, good for this guy. He took us to a youth, I don't remember if it was an orphanage or if it was a school or whatever it was, but we walked in and we toured the place. We saw these ladies making tortillas, handmade tortillas it was a stove, it was a griddle, fired by wood. And they're making this meal for us. We walk in, we sit down at the table, and placed in front of us is chicken, real chicken, tortillas, beans, vegetables, pickled jalapenos. I mean, it was an incredible meal. And we go to John chapter 13, and we read the story about Jesus washing the disciples' feet.
Yeah.
That is the most incredible feeling in the world. It was the hardest meal I have ever eaten in my life. And I like to eat. And that's the one thing I do really, really well. But here's this meal placed in front of us, and it's like, I can't eat this. Knowing that those kids got rice, beans, and imitation chicken after we ate. And they literally laid out the best of what they had. And they gave it to all of us, every single one of us.